Right now, the world is basically holding a massive, chaotic martial arts tournament. So today, let's take a look back at the previous ones. Across history, from east to west, north to south, all of it. We're ranking them based on how many people got sent to the afterlife. Quick note, this list is compiled from multiple sources, and since war is chaotic, the numbers aren't perfectly accurate, just rough estimates. Plus, some sides exaggerated their achievements, and different time periods use different methods of recording data. So if you see anything that feels off, feel free to comment below. All right, let's start. World War I. We begin with World War I. Even though it's called that, the first truly global-scale war actually happened earlier, the 7 Years' War. We'll get to that later. As for World War I, it mainly took place in Europe, and when it was happening, nobody called it World War I. People just called it the Great War because, well, they didn't know there would be a World War II. Even though most of the fighting was in Europe, the war dragged in colonies from all over the world, supplying troops and resources. The deeper cause of the war was long-standing tension between European powers. Germany, in particular, had risen as a powerful industrial and military nation. Its economy and science were among the top in the world. But since it was a latecomer, its territory and colonial empire were smaller than Britain and France. On top of that, militarism and imperial ambition were deeply embedded in its system. So naturally, two major alliances formed: the Entente, Britain, France, Russia; the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire. Both sides were racing to build up their military strength, just waiting for a reason to go at each other. And that reason came on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated by a Serbian extremist. And just like that, war broke out like a domino chain across Europe. This was the first time in history that a war was truly modern, total, and industrialized. Technologies from scientific revolutions were fully deployed. The war was fought across land, air, sea. From 1914 to 1917, the fighting was extremely brutal. Millions of casualties appeared across Europe. Main fronts included the Western Front, France, Germany, Belgium; the Eastern Front, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary. Weapons and tactics kept evolving, basically to make killing more efficient. Because of massive losses, countries started pulling in manpower from everywhere. The turning point came when the Central Powers began to lose momentum. Then the United States entered the war, supporting Britain and France. Even though Russia withdrew due to revolution, the Entente still won. By 1918, the Central Powers began surrendering one by one. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. Germany, being the main pillar of the losing side, got hit with heavy penalties. Its economy collapsed and the country was severely weakened. And this would later become one of the key reasons for World War II. Total casualties: 15 to 22 million dead, over 20 million wounded, roughly about 1% of the world's population gone. World War II. Now, if you've talked about World War I, there's no way you're skipping its sequel, World War II. This was basically a full-scale upgrade in every aspect. Scale, military technology, number of deaths. To understand why it happened, we have to go back to the aftermath of World War I. After losing the war, Germany, the main pillar of the defeated side, had to carry a massive burden of unfair treaties. The result? Its economy and political system were completely messed up. Hyperinflation went crazy. The government was basically powerless, and the people became more and more frustrated. That's when extreme ideologies started showing up. The most prominent one was the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler. Hitler was originally Austrian, but he fought for Germany in World War I and even received medals for bravery. After Germany's defeat, he, like many Germans, was extremely bitter about the situation. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, everything got even worse. And that chaos created the perfect environment for fascism and militarism to rise. Meanwhile, Britain and France chose appeasement policies, which only made aggressive powers more confident. Gradually, the Nazi Party took full control. Hitler became the absolute leader, and then he started executing his ambitions. Germany formed alliances with other militaristic nations like Japan and Italy. Together, they became known as the Axis powers. After several years of rebuilding and preparing, in 1939, Germany invaded Poland. And just like that, World War II officially began. From 1939 to 1941, the Axis powers expanded extremely fast. Germany took over most of Western Europe. Japan had already occupied Manchuria and pushed deeper into China and Southeast Asia. Italy also expanded its territory. At that point, it honestly looked like they might win. But then, they made two massive mistakes. Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And just like that, they dragged in two of the biggest players on the planet, the Soviet Union, the United States. From 1942 to 1945, the tide completely turned. The Allies were formed, led by the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union. The Soviet Red Army defeated Germany at the Battle of Stalingrad. That battle forced Germany from an offensive strategy into a defensive one. While the Soviets pinned down most of the German army on the Eastern Front, the US and UK started pushing from the west. In North Africa, Allied forces defeated German and Italian troops. Then they moved into Italy. In 1944, the Allies launched the D-Day invasion at Normandy, opening up the Western Front. At this point, Germany was getting hit from both sides, and it was only a matter of time. In 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Japan still refused to surrender. The United States, now holding nuclear weapons, dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After those two strikes, Japan surrendered, and World War II came to an end. Total casualties? Around 70 to 85 million people died. About 2/3 of them were civilians. Deaths came from bombings, massacres, genocide, starvation, disease. This remains the deadliest conflict in human history. It also left behind a very clear lesson. Never push a nation too far, because if you do, you might just create something even more dangerous in return. Taiping Rebellion. Alright, next up, the Taiping Rebellion. This was a massive religious uprising in China during the late Qing dynasty. Let's go back to the mid-19th century. At that time, the Qing dynasty was already falling into serious decline. The weaknesses of the feudal system became more and more obvious. Officials were corrupt, taxes were heavy but inefficient. And in southern China, class conflict and ethnic tensions were extremely intense. On top of that, there was a combo of disasters, natural calamities, crop failures, famine. The poor just kept getting poorer. You could say the entire population was being pushed deeper into poverty on a massive scale. Internally, things were bad. Externally, even worse. The Qing was basically seen as a paper tiger. Western powers bullied it repeatedly. In the Opium Wars, China lost badly and earned the nickname the Sick Man of East Asia. Pretty humiliating. In that situation, public anger kept building up until it finally exploded into multiple uprisings. The most notable one was led by a religious figure named Hong Xiuquan. Originally, he was just a regular scholar who kept failing the imperial exams. So yeah, he had some frustration with life. According to legend, in 1837, he had a dream. In that dream, he met God the Father and Jesus Christ, and was told that he was Jesus's younger brother. Yeah, that escalated quickly. He believed he was given a mission: reform society, overthrow the Qing, protect the people. So when he woke up, he basically decided, alright, time to start a revolution. After a period of preaching and gathering followers, in 1850, he and his group launched an uprising in Guangxi. The movement had a lot of slogans, but the main message was, overthrow the Qing dynasty, build a utopian society where everyone is equal. At that time, people were already fed up with the government. So when they heard these promises, they joined in huge numbers. Within a short time, the movement gathered hundreds of thousands of followers. The force was both massive and aggressive. In less than a year, they captured over 16 provinces, around 600 cities and towns. They fought against multiple Qing emperors, and actually made them scared. In 1851, Hong Xiuquan declared himself the Heavenly King, and officially established the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. By 1853, they captured Nanjing, renamed it Heavenly Capital, and turned it into their political center. At their peak, they controlled a huge portion of southern and central China, but that was also their peak. From the mid-1850s onward, things started falling apart internally. Leadership conflicts, power struggles, and Hong Xiuquan himself, after gaining power, basically went from a strict lifestyle to full-on indulgence, spending time enjoying life instead of governing. Meanwhile, the Qing dynasty began rebuilding its strength. They mobilized regional armies, and even received indirect support from Western powers. Funny enough, those same Western powers originally wanted to weaken the Qing, but after seeing the Taiping movement, they realized, yeah, these guys might be even worse. So they switched sides and helped the Qing instead. From the 1860s onward, the Taiping forces kept losing ground. In 1864, their capital Nanjing was besieged. Hong Xiuquan chose to end his own life. Shortly after, the city fell, and the Taiping movement completely collapsed. Now, we haven't even talked about how brutal this war was, because because it was insane. The war devastated large parts of southern China, cities destroyed, agriculture ruined, entire regions became uninhabitable. Estimated deaths? Some sources say up to 70 million, others say around 20 to 30 million. The difference comes from how the data was recorded, but either way, it was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. That concludes the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel to look forward to part 2 coming soon.